right, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Letters from Camp. And today we have with us a very special guest. Um, Many of you may know her just as Nurse Becky, but tonight our guest is Becky Lantry. She's been a nurse at Camp Winoxet for many, many years. Becky, good to have you with us.
It's good to be here.
So let's just start off with kind of what your story was. How did you first come to Winoxet? How were you recruited to be the nurse?
Okay. So I did take some notes, so every now and then I'll look at them and stuff. So I first came to Camp Winoxet in the summer of 2000. I was a new Boy Scout leader, but I was a veteran of being a Cub Scout leader for like about 5 years. I was at the Neshoba Valley Council house office in Lancaster, and I was going to an orientation for new leaders that were going to camp. And the orientation, of all things, was led by Jeff D. And at the end of his presentation, he asked if anyone knew a nurse. And so I said, well, I'm a nurse. And he said, oh, let's talk. And so I said, well, what do you need? And he said, well, we're kind of looking for a nurse for camp. So I'm thinking he needs like maybe a few weeks of coverage or something. So I said, well, he said, what do we have for time? And I said, well, right now I'm doing school nursing, so I have the summer off. And he said, oh, we kind of need the whole enchilada. And that's how it began. So I said that I'd never done camp nursing before, and what was involved. He said, "Oh, you can talk to the nurse that was there last year, and she can kind of fill you in." And I said, "Well, I have two boys who are scouts, and I have a daughter that would have to come with me." And he said, well, that's not going to be any problem. He said the previous nurse had her kids stay with her at the health lodge, and that would just be great. And so I had one phone call with the previous nurse who wasn't much help. She only big piece of advice she told me was that I should get the water heater removed from the toilet because it was going to explode. I was like, oh, great. What kind of facility is this, Um, so I first saw the camp sometime in late spring, figuring I should go look at it to see what was it I going to need. Um, and I showed up with my arm in a sling because I had just broken my elbow on a Boy Scout trip at Cape Cod, and I fell off my bicycle. Great job. But I said, oh no, this will be all gone by the time I come to camp. And so we talked about things, and they said, well, then Nate and Danny Greenwood, who are my sons, they would probably go to Provo, and that Laura would stay with me at the health lodge. And that's how it began, and stuff.
Now, did you have any camp experiences when you were younger? Did you attend any summer camps, anything like that?
So I had no previous summer camp experience. The only thing I had done was volunteer 2 times at Camp Split Rock to teach first aid. Mm-hmm. And that's where I met Jeff D. He was the camp director. And when I was a kid, I never went to camp. Girl Scouts their camp was too expensive. You didn't go there with your troop. My 2 brothers, however, did go to Camp Winoxet, but we never visited, and I knew nothing about it. And, it was cheap for them to go, and they always went with their troop, just the way Boy Scouts come in now. Mm-hmm. The only other experience I had was I volunteered one summer with the Girl Scouts to be what they call a program aide, which was sort of like a CIT. I was a helper. I was 14 years old, and the camp was Camp Wakatatina, and it was in the back of Burbank Hospital on grounds that nobody even knows are existing out there, but there was a camp out there.
Oh, interesting. And your troop you were involved with was 1728 Lunenburg?
Yes, it is.
And then pretty much from 2000 on, you've kind of been pretty much there, right, in some capacity.
Yeah, so I worked for the camp a total of 12 years now. 8 years was almost full time, and then 4 years was just like part time,
Mhm.
because I went back, left school nursing, went back to working in the hospital, and so I came part time to try and orient to the new grad that we would hire, and give her a few days off, and just help with everything. Mainly because I just couldn't quit.
Absolutely. What are some things that people maybe don't know what it's like to be the camp nurse?
That there is absolutely no training for it. Um, there was nothing in all of my nursing preparation, nursing school. I went to UMass and for a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. Nothing I did in the hospitals prepared me for this. And there's also no camp school for nursing. So it wasn't like, oh, okay, now I know what I'm doing. So I really had to fly by the seat of my pants, figuring out how to do the job. I remember that check-in the first time I did it was a total disaster. The troops showed up with their health forms. There were no buddy tags made. There was no medications forms made out because I'd never seen the health forms before. There was no medication sorting system because I didn't know I needed that. I was crying. No one could help. I missed my supper. The kids got their meds after campfire. And so now the system that we have in place is basically from years and years of tweaking. Um, it was me that put all of the process that we do now in writing.
Mhm.
And it's been the orientation for every new nurse that comes now. Um, Before that, there was nothing. I've been asked many times, would I share this with other people? Because other camps and other people wanting to teach at camp school wanted to know what was going on.
Mhm. And with the more streamlined process that allows us to kind of open a little later, kind of give the staff a little more time off on their Sunday, and kind of get kind of things down to, a pretty efficient check-in for most of the troops.
It is, and the way it works now, it's just like it flows. People come in, they don't spend a long time. They give me their meds. We have a system for how we process all those meds, and it all flows. It's like it took a long time, but it works.
Mhm. What are some of the biggest challenges and maybe some of the biggest rewards of being the camp nurse?
So I say the challenges are that you don't know with every knock at the door, is it going to be something routine? Is it just Band-Aid patrol, or is it some disaster? Um, I kind of like the challenge, having to draw on my nursing experience to fix this problem. It could be simple, or to stabilize somebody so that they can now make their journey to the hospital for something more. Um, I kind of like the autonomy of having to handle that myself, to think the problem through and do all that. But I also realize that my limitations, that there are things that this can't be handled at the health lodge. And that's what needs to be shifted out, you know?
Mhm. Um, and then, and you've been at camp a long time without violating anyone's kind of HIPAA rights. What are some of the grossest injuries you've seen?
So I thought about this for a long time. And this story involves Dan Megan and Jeff D. Okay. They were doing a campfire skit. And this was a cooking scenario with Dan sitting at a table and Jeff D getting behind him, sort of providing an extra pair of hands. And they had this shirt over them, so you didn't know that Jeff D was behind them. And so there's this cook on the stage with four hands, So they proceed to make things. First, it was sandwiches, and then they did this salad, which required some chopping. Now, I had watched this campfire skit a whole lot of times, and all of a sudden, Danny Megan stands up and says the words that are from a Saturday Night Live skit, a Saturday Night Live skit that I've heard, which is like there's a Julia Child from a cooking show that was on Channel 2 where she's cutting up a chicken and all of a sudden she cuts herself and she's calling for help and then she slowly starts to bleed to death. And I'm like looking at Danny and he's going, "Oh, I've got a bleeder." And I'm like, "That's from the SNL skit. What the heck? I've never heard that before." And, oh, I think I need the nurse. And I'm in the audience thinking, I don't remember this. And then I noticed that his hand is wrapped up in the apron and it's starting to get red. And so I run down the auditorium stairs and I get on the stage and I think, oh, I think we have to go now in my Julia Child voice. And the two of us run up the stairs to the health lodge. And there I discover that he's chopped off a quarter of the top of his index finger, which will now not stop bleeding. So I hold pressure on it and it's bleeding through, and I can't butterfly it because there's nothing to put it together because it's missing this chunk. And I wrap on more gauze and I hold my pressure. And I finally say to him, we have to go to the hospital. This is not stopping. No, says Danny, I have to do this, the closing campfire. And I'm like, no. And so we start to argue. I rewrap, we argue some more. And then I strike a deal. I said, look, you're going to have to hold pressure on this the entire time of the closing, and then you're going to go. Okay. So finally, get through that. He goes to the hospital, gets this wonderful stuff they call gel stop. And it's like a little thin sponge. And the minute you put that on the wound, it just stops it. It makes it all stop bleeding. Oh my God, I used the leftovers for the entire rest of the camping season for every night I had. It was wonderful stuff, just wonderful. So that's my story.
That's a great one. That's awesome. Um,
I don't think I violated any HIPAA with
no, I
it.
don't think so. And
There
I
were a
don't think
lot of people that saw this in action.
I don't think Danny believes in HIPAA anyway, so that's fine.
I don't know.
So what was the experience like having, your two sons who came through the program and then worked on staff? What was it like kind of being able to work with them and kind of see them go through the program as you were kind of at camp?
I've thought back on this, and I have to say that the best thing about those summers with my sons was that we shared memories for over like 11 years of camp stories, about camp staff. There were good things, there were bad things. And all that's happening when most parents and their children are drifting apart. Your teen years, you and your parents don't see eye to eye. And I think we're really much closer. Every time we talk about camp, we get this same glow. We start, oh, do you remember this? Do you remember that? And so it was just great to see them grow from being a camper to being a CIT to being junior staff and then senior staff. And then they made mistakes, and they had fun. They made great friends. Okay. And they grew into positions of responsibilities, and I was part of their world. And I don't think many parents can say that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And certainly unique among probably many parents of adolescents, like you said.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move into our lightning round. So these are the same set of questions that everyone gets. So let's start off with, what is your favorite camp song?
It's Winoxit. Yeah, I think it's a lot for everybody because it really sums up how I feel about camp.
Mm-hmm. How about camp skit? I'm guessing it's not the Julia Child skit.
No, it's not. But yours truly did involve herself in a couple of campfire skits, and it was kind of a tie between Aquarius and Raining Men.
Yes.
So much fun.
It's Raining Men was definitely a highlight for me. That was great.
Oh gosh.
How about your favorite camp meal?
Favorite camp meal. I've come to like Taco Tuesday, where I start to make my own taco salad out of all the stuff that we have to eat. So that's my favorite.
How about favorite place in camp?
I like to go to chapel, and it's to pick the blueberries.
And then, if you kind of have a different take because you came in, as an adult to camp. So maybe not like your camp hero or staff member you looked up to, but maybe was there a staff member you really respected, or maybe, just maybe one of the, nurses you worked with throughout the years or anything like that?
I thought about this, and my camp heroes are Jeff T. and Danny Megan. They included me in everything. I wasn't just the hired help. I was part of the staff. And I remember when the 10 Commandments were first written, and then when it became the program that became part of our camp culture. I thought back of their vision and that they had, and how every one of us just bought it hook, line, and sinker because it was just so good. Um, the reason I stayed so long and I fought so long each summer to come back even part-time is that um, I just loved it. You know, it became part of me and something that I couldn't give up. It's part of the reason why I came back in the lingering days of COVID just to make sure that camp was going to open again,
Mhm.
because I believe in Camp Winoxet. I believe in the program, and I believe it is a wonderful, magical place that um, you want to be a part of. And it was through their friendship and their vision and their never-ending love for this place that, I'm glad I'm a part of it.
Yeah, and I think it's a good lesson for everyone too, because all it was you raising your hand at a meeting, and here we are 20 something years later, and
It is.
and
And hopefully this year there's a new school nurse that's going to come work with me. So maybe a new legacy will be born.
yeah, great. Well, thank you very much, Becky, for joining us. And for all of our viewers, I'm sure you've all seen Becky at the Health Lodge, and continue to in some capacity for a long time. And so thank you very much, Becky, for your time.
And thank you. I think this is a wonderful program. I've enjoyed all the interviews that I've seen.
Thank you.
All
All
right.
right. All right, viewers, tune in next month for a new episode of Letters from Camp, and we'll see you then.